So I think I've talked before about my local MP, Neil Coyle, a pink balloon with a face drawn on it, with a fucking
Hmm.
suit and tie. Nasty man, deeply, very nasty. A member of parliament for old Southwark and Bermondsey, old Southwark, very nasty MP. He sucks. He sucks really bad. Like I've been to his office and like cried in front of him, talking about how scared I am with how things are changing for trans people in the UK when I was very, very early in transition as well, and like really scared. And he just said that like TERFs had come to him and they're his constituents as well, so he needs to listen to all his constituents. But
Mm.
this isn't even the thing that's like core bad about him, like this chestnut-headed freak. He spends all his time on Twitter harassing people with further left politics than him. Uh, he writes he writes like not every week, but like often as he's the MP for Southwark, he writes into the Southwark News for a thing called The View from Westminster. And every time we get to this in the paper, I'm just like, I like the view from here. I don't need his view. Um, but you know, and in every week when he is doing it, he says just like, um, oh, it's a real problem that all these schools are closing. We're all looking for the guy who did this.
Yeah.
It's sure as shit that there isn't enough housing. That's the Tories' fault from when they were in, and maybe Corbyn's fault somehow. And this shit,
Yeah.
it's
We'll
so
never figure out
embarrassing.
what to do about this.
Yeah,
Doesn't
and
matter how long we're in.
there are two like pinnacles of his career that really I think stand out. One is him like drunkenly ranting just like racist gossip or possibly abuse directly at someone in like a Westminster pub when he was drinking with the other MPs. Probably not the cool MPs. He probably doesn't get to hang out with like Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer, where
Yeah.
they're there like telling like a story about like oh, Keir, like tell the story about when you were like a high-powered lawyer. Do it, Keir, do it, Keir. And then like Neil Coyle will come over and try and like laugh with them, and they'll be like, oh, and just like turn slightly so that he's not in the circle, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that's one is when he got drunk and said a
They'll be
bunch
like,
of shit
no.
about some
Oh, no,
Chinese
right?
guy. Yeah, yeah, Neil. And the other one is when he was making fun of campaigners in Newham who are trying to stop a tunnel that was going to be built that's like for commuters who are going to Canary Wharf, so not the black and brown communities in poverty that live in Newham, one of the poorest areas in the whole country, let alone London. They were pointing out how racist it was that there's just basically this big smog pipe just spewing pollution onto black and brown neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And he was like, look at these loony lefties. Now a tunnel is racist. And like he definitely sent that tweet and then went directly to his like lunch with a construction lobby magnate.
Mm.
Anyway, he's the worst guy. He's the
Yeah.
worst fucking guy. And with much joy, I announced that the local Labour Council is completely collapsing and it's his
Oh,
fault and
yeah.
everyone's big mad at him. And I
Yeah.
cummed. It's so good. It's so delightful. So like the Labour head of the council got completely fucked over, possibly by Neil himself, in like how the like new leaders were
Mm.
chosen. She gave an interview to Southern News where she said described herself as being like a mama bear, and then she said it's like they shot a mama bear in the face. And then,
Exactly like
but all
that.
of this, by the way, is a perfect follow-on from last episode because Sarah was talking to us about how invested you need to be in local politics, and I've been invested a long time. It's just nothing's going to change with essentially like Blairite Everard Clare as our MP, like just like the worst imaginable kind of apparatchik who just wants to collect the MP check and get nothing fucking done.
Yeah.
Um, Nightmare guy. And now some shit's moving because the three biggest unions in Southwark all wrote into uh it was in the paper. I'm not sure if they wrote to the paper, but they published an open letter saying like we do not support Neil Coyle or the council or anything that's going on
Mm.
here. We reckon it's fucking election tampering. Three of his own like three Labour councillors rebelled and wouldn't vote to confirm the new leader.
Oh, yeah.
It's really dire. And the mama bear Labour leader has like quit Labour and is running again as an independent. So like it's going great.
Amazing.
And sometimes you just need that Schadenfreude in local politics because, like, fuck, I hate that dude. Um, yeah, I think that's like, was there another part to it? Sorry, that's messy.
It'll
The
come
other
back
thing
to
I
you.
wanted to mention, the other thing I wanted to mention, is Trump firing the people who report on, like the jobs numbers in America, because I became aware of this through a tweet, which I think may have summarized it perfectly. Someone was just like, "Remember when Trump said if we stop testing, COVID numbers will go way down? We're about to be in the same exact situation, but for the whole economy."
Oh my God.
That's such a good summary.
That's like such a galaxy brain thing to say as well. Like it is actually something out of like, it's like something out of Arrested Development or something like that. If we stop testing the COVID numbers, they'll go way down. We might
Exactly.
even get a zero. Yeah.
If George
The
Bluth was
graph might
president, yeah.
disappear. The graph that would be great if we didn't see these graphs anymore. Like
But yeah, it
uh,
seems like it's going to be like, I don't know, with no reporting on that or no like official government reporting on that, like they can just turn America into a, just like, a big prison. Just like it's the
mm,
only people employed by the government are one form of police or another. Just police and bureaucrats, and that's it. Yeah.
hell yeah. Welcome
Cool
to
zone
Red
time.
Planet, everyone.
Yeah, great cheery note to start on. But the
um,
tyranny of Neil Coyle is over, and that's the important thing.
yeah. The tyranny of Coyle has been dealt with largely by Coyle himself. So
Could have seen it coming.
so
Politician
yeah,
dresses a hot dog, crashes his constituency into a building.
trying to find who did this. Amazing. Well, on that note, Mule, what's the most base thing you did this week?
Yeah, unfortunately for Mule fans, not much based stuff this week.
Mm,
But yeah, no, it's still the kind of case where I'm just recovering from a couple of years of doing a bunch of organizing and yeah, I mean
mm,
I'm feeling good. It's feeling positive and it's feeling good to rest and stuff, but
yeah.
I'm getting to the point now where I'm getting a little itchy. I'm trying to think about
Mm,
where I'm gonna go in organising. I
yeah.
very well may go back to Great Manchester Tenants Union. I'm obviously still a member, but the issue with being a content creator and having that kind of taking up a lot of my time now means that you kind of need like a lot of time. Well, content creator, especially a Twitch streamer, you kind of need a lot of time to do that, and I'm not
Mm,
sure how much time I'll be able to dedicate to organizing. But when things calm down and I get a bit more of a solid schedule on the go, maybe I'll be able to figure it out.
yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just kind of ticking over at the moment for me, so nothing major to report. Looking after myself, still looking after my health, and things are going well. How about you, Tim?
Well, so I'm not sure if anyone saw, but we just had FBI director guy Kash Patel down randomly in New Zealand. Usually anything like this would be announced, there would be like a whole thing or whatever, but he just popped up and announced that they were opening like with our government's coordinate you know cooperation, opening an FBI office in New Zealand, which is wild. We've never had one before, and we don't need one. Uh and it was like this wild thing. Like there was like, it's like this whole thing where they're making out like there's this coming war against China and that we need our American allies close and all this kind of, it's like absolutely just like ridiculous considering, especially for New Zealand, like China is our biggest trading partner, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, like would New Zealand be at war with China if this happened?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, what? Yeah, who knows? So no one's really knows what is going on here. But so there was a gigantic protest yesterday, and it is interesting because I think even like a lot of liberals that don't necessarily see America as like the big bad guy still know that this is probably not good, especially like there's like, I mean, there's a lot of liberals that know that America is doing bad stuff in Palestine and that that's connected somehow, but they don't exactly like they don't have the whole picture, but maybe they're starting to get there. So yeah, I saw a lot of people posting about the FBI thing leading up to the protests, like a lot of more like liberal kind of influencers and all this kind of stuff. A lot of people that are just like in general, like not like I would say nowhere near as far left as you might have expected someone to be like 2 or 3 years ago if they were going to be posting like Yankees out or some shit like that, you know? So but yeah, the protest was good. It was huge. And I think there's a growing understanding in New Zealand that our current conservative coalition government are just doing whatever they can to ingratiate themselves with America. And then we're looking at the news and we're seeing America kind of falling apart while the dawn of the great Chinese century is just beginning. And it is true though, like I think everyone, even like previous conservative, like national run governments were quite close with China just for trade reasons and stuff. And I think that it's like, like even a lot of stalwart like national voters and stuff are starting to be like, wait a minute, like what's going on here? Like what are these guys doing? Like it's very transparently pro corporate
That's something I think
agenda.
has happened a little bit here. Like, I think there's
Yeah,
definitely some people who are like, maybe Farage is pushing the American line more than the British line.
yeah. So went along to that. Yeah, and it was a good time. What about you, Soph? What have you been up to?
A few things. My friend got arrested.
Mm,
It's her second time getting arrested, so she was more chill about it. And also she was more chill because she just kind of accepted it was going to happen. She said that she spent most of the time she was arrested the first time at a protest. She was just like stewing about it. She
yeah,
was just like, fuck's sake, the whole time. And this time she was just like, okay, I've got to pass 24 hours, which I think like is how everyone hopes they would handle it if they got
yeah.
nicked. So the thing I did, I guess, was just arrestee release support. Unfortunately, it was in Harlow, which, like, I don't know if people know London, but that is not near to Southwark. So the best I could
Mm,
do is just be like, hey, like when you see this text, like come to mine, I'll cook you a burger,
yeah.
instead of being like outside when she got out. Um,
Mm,
but it was still nice. Um, I had a hub shift this week, and it was just like sometimes hub shifts are really slow and basically no one comes in. Um, but there are always some of the same regulars who are like homeless people who live in the neighborhood and right around the corner, and they're
oh
basically
yeah.
there every time that the hub is open. And it's just lovely to see them. And there was actually like a rats. We spoke to Cena from the group Rats on the show. A Rats like dinner going on that we like had some food of and just like hung out, and like by a booking error there turned out to be like way more people showing up for the hub shift than we had planned at all. So it was
Mm,
just like kind of just a chill time where we're just hanging out, which isn't, I don't know if that's that based, but it was just very comfy vibe.
yeah.
I had a nice time. And I've been writing some stuff. I've got now like a video upcoming about trans organizing. I'm making progress on something to do with something I'm now calling Israel Belief and Action, which is led to do with the ideologies that are like relating other countries to Israel. And I'm writing something about just like how hard it is to engage with pop culture with like all the horrors. Just like
Mm,
it's just really like soul numbing to try to like engage with shit uh
yeah.
with all the doom going on. Um yeah. Yeah. I got some writing
Yeah.
done. I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Cool.
That's my base stuff.
Nice.
All right. Well, so we want to know what base stuff you've been doing. That's you, listeners and viewers. You can message us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, or send an email to based@redplanetshow.com. Include your name and pronouns if you're cool with that, and we may shout it out in a later episode. But why don't you kick us off, so fill us in on what's been happening over there in the UK?
Yeah, sure thing. So there have been there have been quite a few things going on. Like there were yesterday. We're gonna be talking as the main topic of this episode about the fascist riots, the like refugee hotels, and how that's what's been going
Mm,
on with that. I have loads to say about it because actually the thing that my friend got arrested at was that. Again, I'm not going to go into loads of details about her arrest, obviously, but the protest was a fucking mess. Um, And yesterday in particular, there were tons of things going on all over the place. I'll mention in a later story about Palestine protests that were going on. There was the Fash Hotel thing going on. And this is all this weekend. Wes Streeting's windows were smashed, an office vandalized by trans direct action group Bash Back. So here we go. Let me read from my notes. Umbrella Corp biological weapon Wesley Streeting had his MP office vandalized this week by trans direct action group Bash Back. The windows were shattered and the words child killer were sprayed on the front of the office. We see from pictures that it's not actually very legible. I'm not sure like if there are any like people knowledgeable about spray cans in the chat or in the the wider Red Planet community, but I think it's always worth like sharing important tips about how to most cleanly get your message across if you want to spray child killer on an MP's office. I am of course joking, and it's important to remember in all of this story that we at Red Planet think that crime is wrong and bad and don't endorse anyone doing anything illegal. The office, located at 12A Highview Parade, Woodford Avenue, Ilford, has been the site of concerted political action by trans groups for over a year now, as Trans Kids Deserve Better activists and their allies have been leaving paper coffins outside the office to draw attention to the suicides the Streeting's puberty blocker ban will cause, has caused, and the NHS is now, as is being reported by some, including Trans Kids Deserve Better and the Good Law Project, probably covering up. They probably are hiding a report about trans kids dying because of the puberty blocker ban. It's really fucked. This week, Trans Kids Deserve Better also just staged a die-in protest outside the UK Supreme Court, carrying a coffin painted in the trans flag colours and the TKDB logo, which is a pawn becoming a queen. Obviously, there's a bit of gender going on there, but it's also the most useless, manipulable piece becoming the most powerful piece in the game. It's good stuff. Sorry, I just love it. This is similarly drawing attention to the deaths that will be caused by the recent Supreme Court ruling that has opened the door to an oncoming trans bathroom ban. So it is worth me taking a break from my notes to point this out. The EHRC is working on new guidance to do with trans people, which is most likely going to be a trans bathroom ban. And they want to try to get this out by the end of this month, if they can, with an eye to implementing it as soon as this autumn, this fall for Americans. So this is pretty terrifying. It would not only make it like legal for businesses to discriminate, it would make it illegal for them to not discriminate. It will make it illegal for them to let trans people use the correct bathrooms. Obviously, loads of places will refuse this. This will lead to a massive, just like legal nightmare in this country, where like basically every business very soon is going to get mired into lawsuits from both sides, where like the gender criticals want to make sure they're following the guidance, and trans people want to be able to live our lives at all and go out in public. So yeah, I think like with the UK criminal justice system and civil litigation and legal system and the judiciary all like completely backed up to the teeth at the moment, like it's about to cause some kind of systemic problem, I think, with our legal system, honestly, if that comes through. But yes, the Supreme Court ruling has opened the door to that. We'll have more reporting on that as it happens. Obviously, it's a nightmarish time, and if you know trans people in the UK, especially trans women, check in on them. So back to Wes Streeting's office being vandalized. The manifesto on the website of Bashback, the group claiming responsibility, says, Bashback is a trans-led direct action project focused on total transgender liberation, showing that we cannot be silenced, we cannot be beaten down, and we are not afraid to stand our ground. Organizations that promote transphobic rhetoric, from banning hormones and puberty blockers to confining us to or defining us out of categories of woman and man, to promoting conversion therapy and facilitating hideous harassment campaigns, should come to expect us. Because we will not put up with the abuse anymore. We will no longer see our sisters murdered. We will not be shoved back into the closet and left to die in the dark. All of our targets have blood on their hands. We refuse to let them wash it off in peace. Welcome to a new era of trans rage. Which is, rhetorically very powerful. Sound stuff. I today, just before the show, saw a fundraiser going around and shared on my Instagram story. A trans woman in London who was attacked by a gang of guys with weapons and is now fundraising for like a bunch of dental work because obviously we have the NHS, but it doesn't cover dentistry. A nightmarish situation to be in the first place, let alone to have to fundraise for. If you're hearing this, this can get edited out. Okay. In the live, if you're in the audience right now, please check out my Instagram story and share that fundraiser and donate to it if you can. She deserves all the support she can possibly get. Naturally, she is a trans woman of color, which is something I've been pointing out for a little while, is that a bunch of white trans women are going, oh my God, we're all going to get murdered immediately. And I, as a white trans woman, want to use my platform to repeatedly point out we are in the least danger of any racialized group being white. And there are sisters who are at the front line of this right now, literally experiencing the violence, and us trying to center ourselves is not only selfish, it is dangerous to them, deprives them of support that they could be getting. Okay, back to the story. In response to the vandalism, it is possible that Mr. Streeting felt some kind of feelings, though currently we lack a source on whether or not the Ilford MP is in possession of a human heart. So we'll check in on that. Streeting's office will not see a moment's peace, as tomorrow, Monday 4th, it is going to be one of the sites of the announced Siege on Labour, coordinated by pro-Palestinian groups. So this is a big thing that's going to be happening tomorrow, and I'll cover it properly next week. No, actually, I won't be here. We'll cover it next week because, they're just basically targeting a whole bunch of Labour Party-related sites to put pressure on them for all the evil shit that they're doing at the moment. So all Wes is having a bit of a bad time here in the UK. That's the story. Tim, why don't you tell us about Wesley in the US?
Well, another Wesley. We're going to Wesley to Wesley. Wesley Lapatna was So you probably saw there was a like a mass shooting attack in New York City, one of the skyscrapers downtown. It was a Nevada man who walked down into a midtown Manhattan skyscraper with an assault rifle and killed 4 people before ending his own life. There's a lot of stuff going around about this still. He did leave, he had a note in his wallet talking about his his motivations and all this kind of stuff. He's clearly like very unwell. But there's been a whole stream of conspiracies and all this kind of things. So basically the dude got in the elevator, went up, jumped out of the elevator, and so actually he shot a bunch of people in the lobby first, and he went up in the elevator and shot someone up there. So the office that he got on was on the 33rd floor, and the 4th victim was this Wesley Lapatna, who is a Blackstone CEO. The business that was on that floor was like kind of like a startup thing, but it's like this woman who's like heavily involved with a lot of really suspicious stuff, like obviously dealing with like shitty companies like BlackRock, was like a very well-known Zionist and all this kind of stuff, is a very likely target, right? Like we're living in the post-Luigi world.
There's a lot of reasons to hate her, absolutely.
Exactly. There's like a million reasons to that, she could have been targeted. But according to the shooter's note, he was planning on an attack against the NFL, which was on a different floor in the building. So obviously there's a lot of grounds for conspiracy here. He had an injury, like a previous injury that he'd had for years, that had been causing him like just like super bad headaches and everything. And he'd seen doctors. He'd done everything you're supposed to do to try and to get yourself sorted out, and it hadn't worked. So it kind of seems like he has snapped and, done this. But yeah, I don't know. The note was kind of wild. Like in the note, he's saying like, "Study my brain, please." Like they gave me a brain injury and I have to drink antifreeze and all this stuff. Like his family said that he would always go to sleep with like an ice pack on his head and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it seems like he was pretty fucked up. And
Yeah.
yeah, so this was like, like it's like it seems like he he possibly got off the wrong floor while looking for the NFL headquarters, but also he, like lives has a shitty life, and he lives in a place where it's like, like this other woman with their partner was, a contributing factor to a reason why, like there's like a lot of things over there, like why like BlackRock, they own, what is it, a third of all the rentals or something like that.
They're the third biggest landlord in
A
the
third
US.
biggest. Yeah. No, so
Mhm.
it's, yeah, it's like, I think it's like 2% of rentals or something like that. Third biggest landlord. Just like a deeply horrible company that do terrible things. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, so it's like this kind of thing, but it's like, well, I mean, either way, he was striking a blow against people that have made his life worse, I would say. A
I
lot of people, yeah, getting really conspiratorial, thinking like, oh, like this is a cover up because of, like the CEO that has been killed. And I think it's kind of like interesting because it's like, regardless, it's like people should be thinking about the fact that you can just go downtown and get off the wrong floor of an elevator and be confronted with a person that has done, immeasurable damage to their community. And like the fact that you have to question and go like, okay, so why did the CEO get popped when, like, like what's their rap sheet, what have they done? It's like kind of like I don't think we need to get too conspiratorial about that,
Yeah. I think
um
what's in, like we've been saying a little bit about, because we've seen a few of them this year. Did we start off this year literally with the explosion of the Cybertruck outside the Trump Tower by the guy Livelsberger?
yeah.
Like Robert Evans's term that I quite like is weird terror. And I just like,
Mm,
I think this idea that like we're in a stage where like the American public is mad as hell, but the American ruling class's favorite mechanism for controlling the proletariat is to make them dumber on purpose, like take education away from them, hide information, make it so people's understanding is worse, flood the public with like
yeah.
bigotry and things to divide them. So no one has like clear analysis. Like
Mm,
it's easy from within our bubble of people who have an analysis of the way the world works to think everyone has this analysis, because what, like we all learned it online for free, so it's like obviously you can all
yeah.
get it, right? Or we learned it from shit experiences in our lives that radicalized us, or like obviously it's available to people, but it's just like no, the general public actually don't have it.
Yeah.
And so you will get people doing weird shit. But the one thing I wanted to say about it is like I've been thinking a lot about the years long, decades long pattern of American school shootings, and the way there's been
Mm,
this cycle of people commentating on American school shootings, and it's spawning more school shooters.
oh yeah.
And like a lot of these guys have been incels and fascists. I repeat myself, have been different kinds of fascists. And like a lot of the people commentating on it and focusing on it the most and spreading the like focus and attention on it within their communities have been people who like they've been talking about it through a lens of like our children are in danger, or like this is what happens when like young men aren't listened to or whatever. Like they're saying white supremacist or incel things about it, and this
Mm,
furthers the cycle. And I'm just kind
yeah.
of like, well, if they carry on being outbursts of violence and then people keep on saying about them, this is because of the working class being oppressed by the ruling class, it will probably feed the same cycle in the same
Yeah,
way.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think like we talked about that a bit when all the stuff with Luigi first popped off, where it's like it doesn't particularly matter exactly why he did it, but like the story that will emerge around it, and like how people have kind of like how everyone was just like, fuck yeah, that guy deserved it, you know? It's kind of like that is a whole thing in itself, you know? Like we don't need to like the public
People seem to
response.
have forgotten that he did not have a cohesive like ideology. He just had the experience of being fucked over by health insurance
Yeah.
that so many other people had, and that was enough.
Yeah. And also like the whole thing of like you know, it's like people are going to attach their own meaning to it. And it's like that kind of thing where it's like the exact like that CEO could have died by getting, you know, like slipping over on a banana peel or a piano falling on his head or whatever like that, and people would still celebrate his death. They
Like they do
obviously
for
wouldn't have
the
the
there is a list of martyrs, right? And it's like
mm,
Luigi Mangione, Comrade Orca, Comrade Submarine, Comrade
yeah.
Lost. And we were all like holding them in our hearts. Like we all know. Like
Yeah. Like obviously,
mules.
you know, him being like a charismatic and handsome dude and stuff also has a
Yes.
lot
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do with him getting kind of singled
Yeah.
out. But also, like I think that that is like, you know, that's a good gauge on how the public feels about um, you know, like I can't even remember the CEO guy's name, but like, you know, like people of his
Who
class at
cares?
this moment, you know, like exactly. It's like um
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
public response and the kind of and even like I would say like this kind of deification of Luigi has a lot to do with that as well,
Yeah,
or you know,
definitely.
like as a product of that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah
Mule
um
has already put in the chat that he's like the guy with the pulsating temple, and I can see him wriggling in his seat. Like you want to say about this that you believe the cover up. It's okay for that to
No.
be your opinion. It's
I
okay.
mean,
yeah
I mean, yeah, like, okay, so it's
mm,
obviously completely true. Everything that Tim has said, I agree with you, Tim. I agree with you, Soph. Everything that you've
mm.
said, and everything that Conrad said
We
before the
do
show.
like to be open-minded.
It's good to be open-minded. Sure, like I can imagine a world in Donald Trump's horrific fascist reality TV star America dictatorship, where he is saying to the cops in America, you can't let the public know that this is what happened. Make
Mm,
something up about the NFL. No one cares about the NFL as long as they're not killing more CEOs. Sure, I can believe that. It's easy to believe it. However, I think that, like, Tim, your point is just really the thing that we should be falling back on here. It doesn't really matter if he wanted to do it or, you know, made a mistake. The fact is that a horrible person has died, and it's
yeah
very good.
mm,
I think, you know, yeah, it's very easy to. I've seen a bunch of people say the thing. I think you mentioned it just before. Like he lived in a place where Blackstone has obviously dominated the rental market and all this kind
yeah
of stuff. However, yeah, it doesn't really matter. You know, Blackstone, as we've said, own a third of all rentals, so it could be true for any person
mm,
in the USA. It's actually one of the most likely things to be a coincidence, right? It's like, yeah, sure. I absolutely believe as well that this guy had this horrible chronic traumatic encephalopathy (CTE)
yeah
from getting bashed in the head from doing um, American football. It's just like a really normal thing. People get Alzheimer's and dementia at age 50 and 40 from it. It's like a
mm,
really, really horrible thing. And yeah, like he could have lived in a Blackstone apartment block and
yeah
it was really shit. And maybe that also made his life shit, but you know, he might not have been targeting NFL guys. I mean, you
yeah
know, also conversely, maybe he knew that Blackstone and NFL were on a similar floor, you know, in the same building, and he wanted to do both. I don't know.
I always
There's
think
like things
about
that we
like
don't know, right?
with the football thing. Like I a book that I read about kink like has a chapter that's called like we should probably ban American football, and it's just like it's
I've read
talking
that
about
in
like
kink books as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah
yeah.
Like activities that
I've
you can consent to, but like they do such harm to you that you probably shouldn't be allowed to consent to them.
yeah
And I'm
I've
just
seen
like,
similar arguments about like Thai kickboxing and
yeah,
regular boxing and stuff as well, where it's kind of
literally,
like, oh, so you just consent to being like punched in the head until you get so many
yeah,
concussions that you
yeah,
MMA.
know
literally,
People get
exactly
choked
like
out in MMA all the
yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
yeah
And I just like it makes me think that like people who are not familiar with just how fucked up people get by American
Mm.
football
Yeah.
are mostly people saying that like there's no way it could have been the NFL. I'm like, it could easily be the
Yeah.
NFL as someone's target. It could be like WWE could be someone's like target of a mass shooting. Like
Yeah.
people are mad at all sorts of people in America because
Yeah.
America's got a lot of really shitty people doing like
Mm.
the American ruling class are monsters.
Yeah.
I think also it bears talking about that the NFL is absolutely the kind of institution and organization that deserves our ire. And if someone
Mm.
were to target someone like we've just said, the World Wrestling Entertainment, whatever it is,
Yeah.
WWE now, isn't it? Right, whatever it is. World Wrestling Entertainment. Vince McMahon, horrible person who colluded with Hulk Hogan to bust unions in wrestling. So if someone targeted him, I wouldn't be surprised.
Nightmare boss, super exploitative. I think a serial rapist as well. Like,
Mm.
nightmare person. Like, this is what I mean. Like, it doesn't even have to be something like the NFL where the actual physical like contact sport that like isn't being like performed is like so entrenched in American culture that like people get scholarships for playing it to universities, which means that kids are competing to get these scholarships and getting brain damage in the hopes they'll get a scholarship to be able to afford higher education. Like, what a fucking nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so wild.
And that
That's
shit
why,
is
like,
all the NFL's fault. Like,
yeah. Yeah, absolutely deranged. But so Mia, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what's happening in Los Angeles with the restraining order against ICE?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was news that came out at the end of last week. On the 1st of August, Mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, announced that the Ninth Circuit had ruled in favor of Angelenos and against Trump administration in their plea for a restraining order against unconstitutional ICE raids in the city. In a statement, the mayor said, quote, "Today is a victory for the rule of law and for the city of Los Angeles. The temporary restraining order that has been protecting our communities from immigration agents using racial profiling and other illegal tactics when conducting their cruel and aggressive enforcement raids and sweeps will remain in place for now. We must still fight for justice. Los Angeles will stand together against the administration's effort to break up families who contribute every single day to the life, the culture, and the economy of our great city. No matter what, I will continue to stand by you and fight for your rights, your dignity, and your place in the city we all call home." End quote. So really, the story is about the restraining order being upheld. It appears to have been challenged by the federal government
Yeah.
to be able to do that. The decision is obviously one based in the legal limits of what the city can offer residents, fearing the USA Gestapo, and ultimately what will make the most impact, as we've seen, is communities coming together to defend themselves. And we have seen Trump ignoring the legal limitations that the federal government has, in terms of preventing it from involving itself in state affairs, and various different courts in states and counties all over the country. The DHS and ICE have also been ignoring state laws all over the country. We know this. They're not targeting people who don't have their papers in order. They are targeting people who are waiting for court decisions. They're targeting people who are going into court for hearings about their immigration status and then leaving, even if they've had a positive decision in the court. So,
It just makes you like, why follow the rules in,
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Why follow the rules at all if the Gestapo, the literal Gestapo, are not actually doing anything about it? The main reason that we wanted to talk about this story is because of that. Because even though it is certainly a victory to have this legal precedent to say that if anything were to happen in terms of resisting an ICE raid, then residents of Los Angeles would be vindicated in whatever they do, because of course that's the kind of thing that would, I guess, protect you in a court of law in the future. But it's kind of questionable and a huge gray area as to what courts are going to look like in the future in the
Yeah,
USA, because it's
I have two thoughts on this. One is, and I hate being the nitpicking one here because I usually don't care about historical analogies that much, but I did see someone point this out, and I do like it. I think it's a useful thing to point out. The Gestapo were the secret police of Germany, and so America's Gestapo simply are the FBI or the CIA or the
Mm.
NSA, intelligence community operatives. The SS, the Schutzstaffel, were like this like this militarized body that like Hitler poured funding into until it became like a whole second German society of just this like military thing. And like it's, I guess all I'm saying in saying this is just that like Trump has done something very similar to that with the
Yeah.
funding of ICE that's coming in now. Like how many more ICE agents there will be, and how they will directly understand that like that their job is because of Trump and that they are Trump
Exactly.
people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
the
you're
other
right.
thing I was going to say, no, I mean, yeah, it is. I think it is actually important to say. But the other thing I was going to say is just like when they're getting people from court, when they're trying to go through the process to make their immigration legal, they are illegalizing those people. Like they are criminalizing them in the act of policing. And like if this system all leads through to concentration camps, leads through to forced labor, like they're just slave catchers. Like they're just reverting to like US chattel slavery, right?
That is absolutely what most people seem to be analyzing the situation as, because what end point do you have in Alligator Auschwitz? You know, even though El Salvador, it's not the same country, they're deporting people to CCOT. You know, if you've ever seen any videos about CCOT, and you should watch videos about CCOT, I think I said this on the last time I was on the show, because I think you really need to see it with your eyes, just how horrible and gross it is. You know, in terms of like the way that they treat people in there, the way that they are forcing people to live and exist in that place. Prisons in general are horrible. It doesn't really matter what kind of prison it is, but if you are having this extra layer of torture upon you while you're incarcerated, it's you know, you just can't imagine what's going on with those people's souls. So yeah, it's super important to think about that. It is quite clearly, if you think about the way in which Trump has completely eviscerated every kind of federal institution that is designed to keep the US working or have some kind of working order, like you said at the start of the show, Sophie. You know, the guy who gives everyone the job number is just gone now.
But all of that is premised on a society where people work by some degree of consent. Like America is not a place where people work by consent. America is a place where people work by coercion, but it's usually debt. Like usually the coercion is debt, not someone pointing a gun at you or keeping you in a cage. And I think that's the big shift here, is just like trying to basically make a new, probably smaller country that like it just runs on slave labor and tell everyone else to go get fucked, kind of assuming that they'll just starve because they'll be locked out of the new hyper-fascist America. But it's just like, no, you just have a bunch of angry people who are going to kill you. That's not bad game plan, bro. Like you fucked it.
Well, it's an incredible, it's super like accelerated, and I guess you could argue, well, Hitler did this stuff over a period of, what was it, like 1933 to 1943, when everything was really in full swing in terms of like war in Europe and the expansion of the Nazi project. I guess you could say that was over 10 years. Yeah, I guess it was 10 years, wasn't it? He's just doing stuff so quick, and it's just questionable as to how people are going to react, having lived in this really comfortable individualist neoliberal society. All of a sudden, you know, it won't even matter if you're white. If you're just like against the government, you're going to be on the criminalized side of this new hyper-fascist country. So I can't see it going very well for him.
I think they might imagine they can pull off something that's a bit like Dubai or something. When you see like people do these holidays to experience the like riding around in a solid gold Jeep or something. Like they think they can have like Mar-a-Lago basically be the center of the world, and like, you know, and it's all underpowered by slave labor.
So yeah, we will stay on top of ice resistance and various different parts of it. This isn't the only story regarding ice this week, but we will do a bit of a better job of getting some more ice resistance related stuff news over the next couple of shows for sure. But in the meantime, Soph, why don't you talk to us about Palestine resistance just in general?
Yeah, sure. I've rounded up a few different stories here just to touch on them. Like, I guess they are Palestine related stories. The first two are to do with forms of resistance and ways that the like Zionist social organism and also like ideological material project is collapsing. So the first thing here is Slovenia has banned all transit of Israeli military equipment. That's both ways, to be clear. So they are banning any weapons, any military equipment at all, like moving through Slovenia at all and going to Israel, or moving out of Israel through Slovenia to anywhere else. Um, just like, yeah, I think this is like this. That's a huge precedent to create, right? Is a country saying that, like, yeah, we've already seen like the Hague group, like countries signing to say that they do think that people involved in the Israeli genocide should be tried at the Hague. We've already seen them like committing to arresting people. We know Netanyahu had to fly around Irish airspace because like they said that they would detain him if he went through Ireland, and legally that would be Ireland. And yeah, now like doing this kind of like, I guess a complete freeze out is like the ultimate economic sanction, just like saying that we're just not gonna be involved with your arms trade at all because you're doing something repulsive. So, good on Slovenia. I hope that many, many, many more countries join in as soon as possible. So, second story. This is what I was talking about before, because yesterday, when we're airing this, Saturday 3rd, yesterday, as we're airing this, Saturday 2nd in London, youth demand for Palestine blockaded 3 roads in central London. This is always funny when this kind of stuff breaks the news because, like, I went to university in London and then, like, dropped out because of my mental health, because of money, and then lived in a bunch of different places all around London. And so whenever there's stuff that's like big actions in kind of iconic London places, I think that for people who don't live in London, they might be tourist attractions. They might be places they've seen because they've done like a trip there to a thing. And for me, I'm just like, oh, that's by the like the little Tesco that I would go to at 3 a.m. when I couldn't sleep or whatever. So it's quite fun. But they seem to have taken like a Just Up Oil kind of strategy, like big banners blocking the road off. They are doing it with less numbers, which is kind of interesting because like Just Up Oil obviously uh basically would have like complete marches that would stop traffic. They are basically doing single file, like it's just one line of people. And yeah, it will be curious to see how this
Mm.
pans out in terms of the effectiveness of organizing in this way to do this kind of action, because like there are just less people to remove. But at the same time, if they had all the people they had yesterday in one location, that would only be one location. So they blocked up Euston Road, like right in front of King's Cross Station. I've been there just 10 trillion times. It's very interesting to see that. It's also like one of the busiest, scariest junctions to drive through in London. So if it was blocked up, like people would be unbelievably mad. Um, they
Well,
blocked
that was
up.
the first thing that I thought when I saw it was like the only time that I'd ever been in a car in London was with my stepbrother when he lived there. And it's just crazy having a car in London. Like, the
Yep.
amount of privilege is just completely insane. And I just remember driving through it, and it took so long for us to get from, I can't remember where it was in North London, but maybe Cricklewood. And we went from there to Peckham, and it took like 40 minutes. And I was like, what's going on? Why don't we just get the tube? It's
Yeah,
so
you should have got the
insane.
tube. You should have got the tube for that one.
Ridiculous.
Definitely. Yeah, so they blocked off King's Cross, Holborn, which is another incredibly busy junction, and just like it creates traffic all through the whole city when that's blocked, and Holland Park. Um, yeah, so there's a couple of things that have been going on. There's some more. Yeah, sorry, there'll be more later in the news. But Gonna restart. There was also a lot shared around on his social media this week talking about Egyptians throwing bottles of lentils and rice into the sea with the hopes of getting them to Gaza, where people are currently starving because of the blockade on all aid going in by Israel, who are deliberately starving them, obviously. And it has been reported that they have reached Gaza. So like there has been like videos of people have found them, and they said that like fishermen have trawled them out of the sea and stuff, which is like such a small thing. This comes hand in hand with like France has conducted the first like airdrops of aid. I think the IOF like may have airdropped something at some point, but like Israel
Yeah,
in
they
general is
did,
like
but it was like,
claiming that
yeah,
Hamas is like stealing all the aid or something,
yeah,
and it's just like, well, this doesn't. There's no if that's your claim, then there's no way round where you think that we could give any food to any Palestinian because like
yeah,
obviously Hamas would just steal it. But we also know that like they just think that Palestinian babies are Hamas already. So it's
yeah,
just like it's all nonsense, and just like we shouldn't bother really responding to anything any Zionist says. Just
Yeah, a
suck your
thousand
mom, stop killing
percent.
babies, you know.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like
But
Tim, I think you were going to say the IOF did an airdrop and it literally killed Palestinians, right?
Yeah, yeah. There was like what are they saying? I think it was like contaminated flour or something like that. Like there was
With the
something really bad.
oxycodone in it or whatever.
yeah, I
Oh well,
saw
yeah,
that.
there
Yeah,
was
yeah,
there
yeah.
was that, but there
Yeah.
was also like I saw some other where that was just like expired products and shit like that,
Yeah.
and like but
Moldy
it was just
stuff.
this thing where it's like when the heat was getting on them for like not letting anything in, they have to do something just to try and like keep public favor or whatever like that. So they're like,
It's supposed to
okay,
be a pressure valve. They're trying to
yeah,
release a
yeah,
bit of pressure.
exactly.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
okay, here's a single, shipment or something like that when there's like 10,000 trucks outside, it's just like it's not really, like they're not
Yeah.
doing it
Yeah.
they're not actually doing it for any like humanitarian reasons.
And
But
I
these
don't know if this is
aids,
in your notes. So the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation whistleblower guy.
no.
mm,
Okay, well, I guess I'll just like talk a tiny bit about this quickly, just while we're on the aid stuff, because there's been a whistleblower from the U.S.
mm,
Army who has essentially said, just confirmed it for everybody, all the things that we knew, and he's just doing all the media appearances now, essentially saying, yeah, the IOF are just shooting into crowds of
yeah,
Gazans who are awaiting aid. They're doing mortar shell rounds into the crowds. They're shooting at them with tanks. He had this like really fucking harrowing story about this kid who like came up to him and like kissed his face and like took this aid away, and then this fucking psycho fascist just shot this kid.
mm,
It's just like insane that we have to
yeah,
wait for the confirmation from like a white American before news sources start taking it
Yeah. I mean,
seriously,
we
yeah,
know
right?
what's happening. We do know what is happening because
like we've
like
seen the
of the
videos.
of the consequences of it, and
Yeah,
like also like I wanted to say this, like the France airdropping is just not going to be a like a drop. It's a drop compared to the whole ocean if you compare it to like just opening the fucking borders and letting
yeah,
aid in rather than blockading them. Like you're just never going to be able to drop enough aid in for it to like
yeah,
meaningfully make a difference. um yeah, I think something that's really bothered me this last week is like seeing Western media and some Western politicians like take a turn in their conscience towards the
oh yeah,
genocide because it's
mm,
starvation, and like starvation like it's you can't, because I'm not entirely sure what it is. It might be that the Israeli like the Zionist lie is that like Hamas is like hiding among the Palestinians, so they need to wipe out all the Palestinians with a war against Hamas, and then those are just casualties. Whereas
mm,
if they're just starving everyone, you can't escape the fact that they are just
yeah,
trying to exterminate them. I don't know if it's that
yeah,
or what, or if it's just genuinely like turning their stomachs to see people starving. I don't
yeah,
know.
Well, it feels
Um,
like there's been a big liberal turn because I was
yeah,
watching on my stream this week Bob Geldof from
oh yeah,
Live Aid,
yeah,
who
yeah,
famously never really addresses the imperialist reasons as to why the people
Mm,
are starving in the countries that he's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
trying to sort
Or
out.
like where the money goes when he sends it over there. What
Yep,
you know.
yep, yep. He was very much. It was very interesting because he had this pretty solid line, which was Israel are lying, Netanyahu is lying, and it was crazy to hear him say that on Sky News. And yeah, of course, Trevor Phillips pushed back against him, but I feel like when Bob Geldof is up there and he's going, Hamas are just, you know, horrible, evil people, like still just being like, Hamas are so horrible, they're so nasty, and October the 7th was insane. I don't want to hear anything from either side. I just care about the Palestinian people, right? But that was his message, and that's an overwhelmingly lib-brained,
Yeah.
charity-brained guy, right? And I
Yeah,
think that that's what
definitely.
it is,
Yeah.
Soph. I think that there's now libs who have seen starving babies. They're seeing pictures that look like the Holocaust in terms of how skinny people are, and they're
Yeah.
going, "Oh no, like maybe what these loony lefties are saying has some kind of truth
Mhm.
to it, but
I don't
I
think it's going to
still don't want
shift
it to be
like Keir
anti-Semite."
Starmer or his administration, for example. It's obviously
Absolutely
not going to
not.
Yeah,
shift
yeah.
Trump at all. But it is interesting. There is definitely like a sea change going on with the liberals
Mm,
and with France. So, you know, as I was saying, so like from the Reuters here, France on Friday started to airdrop 40 tons of humanitarian aid to Gaza as it urged Israel to allow full access to the area, which it said was slipping into famine. Faced with the
mm,
absolute urgency, sorry, this is quotes from Macron on X. Faced with the absolute urgency, we have just conducted a food airdrop operation in Gaza. Thank you to our Jordanian, Emirati, and German partners for their support, and to our military personnel for their commitment. Um, yeah, as I already said, it's just not going to be. It's going to be a drop in the bucket in terms of what is needed. But it is interesting to see there, like France is urging them to change on this, right? To
yeah.
allow the borders open, and that's just a crucial thing where I think this is the thing I'm writing about Israel and like how ideologies fit together with it of different countries because like in Europe there's a general like we should be nice to Israel because we're very sorry about the Holocaust, but
Mm,
in Britain and the US there's just a very literal like Israel is our colony, like
yeah, yeah.
like Britain is the 51st state of America and Israel is an American colony in in the region. Like it's just that, right? So like
Yeah.
they're not gonna break in this way. I think that it's already making their governments like unbelievably unpopular and everyone
Yeah.
wants an end to this.
Yeah, I
So
think they're
yeah,
just gonna do like what we've talked about before, where they make Netanyahu and a bunch of ministers a scapegoat, and then they go like, okay, well, we need to
yeah,
get these bad actors out of our good colony, and then we can go
yeah,
back to having good liberal
yeah,
parties on the beach, Tel Aviv, you know, and it's like that
yeah.
is just gonna, you know, it's just kicking the can down the road a little bit, you know.
Yeah, maybe they think they can install some kind of like, you know, Israeli, you know, long-term political reform project in
Yeah,
after this that
yeah,
will
yeah,
like make
yeah,
everything okay in some way, or at least make people forget a bit. But it's like,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
I'm sorry, like enough people are saying death to Israel at this point.
yeah.
Enough people are saying like Israel must be destroyed at this
Hmm.
point that like it's not going back. I think
Yeah,
they've really fucked it.
yeah, yeah.
But Tim, why don't you tell me about worker resistance, the Kamataka government.
Yeah.
This is about IT workers.
Yeah, I can do that. In Karnataka, which is the state of India, which is like basically where like that's a center of all their IT industry shit, you know, like it's like the biggest hub of it all. The government has been working with basically with big, you know, corporations like these big IT businesses to like they wanted to increase the maximum working hours. So they've had a limit on how many hours per day an employee can work, like including overtime. And at the moment it's 10, but they were trying to bring it up to 12 or 14 in some areas and for some businesses, which means that it also would reduce at the moment they have it split into to cover the full working kind of day because even like a lot of these businesses, IT support businesses, they even open 24 hours because they're providing, you know, they're providing services to the imperial core like all around the world. So at the moment it's 3 shifts and most people can only work 10 hours per day in like across those shifts. But what they're doing is they're going to change it down to 14. Well, they wanted to change it down to 14 hours and have it as 2 shifts. So it would be less workers working across that period because those workers could work longer hours. And so the unions, the KITU, so the Karnataka State IT Employees Union, has absolutely just destroyed that plan. So yeah, meaning that they get to stay at the current 10 hours with 3 shifts. But yeah, it's something that's been pushed for a little while by like the BJP government back in 2023. They initially floated it then, but it got shot down, and then it just got revived recently because they're trying to suck up to these companies to try and get some, like obviously, like it's the same as everywhere else, like sucking up to the right wing government, sucking up to the corporations because that fits their kind of personal agenda. So yeah, the KITU had a bunch of street protests, public campaigns, workplace demonstrations. So it was, and it wasn't even just unionized workers, non-unionized workers got in on it as well, because they all sort of saw that it was universally a pretty terrible idea for them. So yeah, they forced the government to retreat after they had a big stakeholders meeting on June 18th. And they obviously showed up and demonstrated there. Yeah, so it's like studies already show that 90% of young Indian IT workers face anxiety due to overwork. So KITU were arguing that longer hours would reduce their productivity, worsen their mental health, and yeah, also eliminate the jobs by shifting from 3 shifts to 2, which they said would cut the workforce by a third. So yeah, so they're also battling mass layoffs at Tata Consultancy Services, saying that these are the same kind of corporate friendly labor laws that are putting all the workers at risk. So it's a pretty good example for future pushbacks in India's tech industry, which is kind of like, like there's so many Western and imperial core industries that are kind of kept afloat by these workers in India, just in the background, whether you know it or not, whether it's like on the phones or on the computers, even like doing things like coding and back end stuff that you never see. Yeah, these are a lot of the people that are doing it. And yeah, even like like you asked this, there has been a couple of phony AI startups that have literally just been, like a direct line to some dudes in Karnataka, like real Mechanical Turk style. So yeah, it's good to see them having this little win, and hopefully it sets a precedent, because yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Like a lot of people in the West, especially in IT and stuff, have kind of like I've worked in IT companies before, and they have, like, a lot of people have a quite a disparaging kind of idea, or like, just like a negative opinion of Indian IT workers and stuff like that. They'll be like, oh, it's just like super cheap and shit and all this kind of stuff. But like really, they are keeping a lot of shit afloat, and they're super
I've
overworked.
worked
And
with Indian IT workers. I was managing a project where a lot of the code was being outsourced to the same
yeah,
company who like Grinder was built by, or at least managed by.
yeah,
And like I was in awe of what they were doing. Like
yeah,
it was just like leagues ahead of anyone I'd ever met in coding terms.
yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's just like a stereotype, like the stereotype of like anything that comes from the outside the imperial core is like shitty and they're getting paid peanuts. It's like, well, you're half right, they're getting paid peanuts, but like
It's certainly not bad work. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so good stuff from the KITU. Hope we see more of that. And why don't you wrap up the news, Mule? Just tell us a little bit more about what happened with the Sydney Harbour Bridge the other day.
Yeah, so a sea of people marched across Sydney Harbour Bridge, calling for an end to killing in Gaza. Over 100,000, estimated to be between 100,000 to 300,000 protesters, including Julian Assange, ex-Foreign Minister Bob Carr, and Labour MP Ed Husic, marched across Sydney Harbour Bridge in heavy rain demanding an end to Israel's genocide in Gaza and sanctions against Netanyahu's government. The march began at 1 p.m. with demonstrators eventually stretching the entire length of the 1.2-kilometre harbour bridge. New South Wales police attempted to shut down the march, citing safety concerns, and used helicopters to order crowds to disperse. Protesters defied the order, with organisers calling it an attempt to silence dissent. I think this is a really funny point, to be honest. I can just kind of hear these Aussie cops going, "Please disperse now," and everyone just being like, "Nah."
Yeah, nah.
Fucking nah, pal. Several Labour MPs joined despite Premier Chris Minns' opposition condemning Australia's inaction. Carr and Husic reiterated calls to recognise Palestinian statehood and sanction Israel for starving Gaza's children. The protest nearly didn't happen due to the draconian anti-protest laws punishing road blockades with jail and fines, but the Supreme Court ruled in favour of demonstrators 24 hours prior. Greens Senator Mehreen Farouqi accused Minns of protecting Israel over free speech. The march was supposed to end at the US consulate, but about 3 p.m., New South Wales police sent out a mass text message to phones throughout the city ordering the pro-Palestine march to stop due to safety concerns, with authorities turning protesters around at the north end. A police helicopter hovered overhead with a loudspeaker, again going, "Please disperse," delivering instructions for the hordes of protesters to turn around and walk back towards the city. The New South Wales Police Acting Deputy Commissioner Peter McKenna told reporters that the protest was the largest he and Assistant Police Commissioner had seen in their time in the force in Sydney. Quote, "Gee whiz, I wouldn't like to try and do this every Sunday. That's short notice," he said. "At points today, we were really concerned about a crowd crash." But he probably really wasn't concerned about that at all. He's probably concerned about an actual mass movement to take over the government.
That was the thing, right? Like they actually, like they approved of the protest and all this kind of stuff in advance, and then they were like, "Oh shit!" Like, I mean, you could say like, "Oh, maybe they didn't expect it would be that big" or something like that. But I definitely think, and like especially when we're talking about a crowd crush and we're talking about like damage to the people. I mean, like danger to the people. They stopped them at the end of, they stopped them and then forced them to like turn around, which is like actually like kind of a lot worse, especially when you're talking about like on a bridge, right? Like
completely enclosed in. My uncle died in a crowd crush, and it was caused by the police.
I've seen big events, like even like concerts and stuff where there's things like that, and like what you're supposed to do is just do it in stages. So be like, okay, everyone's just gonna hang here and we're gonna release like a small section of people at a time. So we're gonna say, okay, cool, everyone up to this point, like you go through whatever, and then like we're just gonna stop for a while, gonna give it like 20 minutes, and then we'll release another group, and that stops just like the entire just burst. So if they were really concerned about that, they would probably be exploring tactics like that instead of going like, like, okay, cool, all you guys that just, that we've kiddled on this bridge, basically, go back the other way.
Completely ridiculous.
Yeah. So ridiculous and super dangerous as well.
Yeah.
But I think it might have been a panic moment for them.
Probably. So that is the news segment. Please do not forget we have a Patreon, and we could really do with your money. Please head over to patreon.com/red_planet, and you can indeed give us money for loads of different benefits that you can get. So I guess let's jump into the main segment, which isn't, I don't think, really going to be much of a main segment because I think we've only got about 20 minutes left of the show. But we did say that we were going to talk about the fascist pogroms, or attempted fascist pogroms at least, in the UK this week. Sophie, why don't you tell us sort of what you've been seeing and your kind of take on it just for the first part of this?
So I think it's really important for us to acknowledge the context of last year. Like there was you go back in the Red Planet Vault, back in the archives, or just on the VOD channel or the podcast feed, you will find an episode from last summer where Mule and I, it was just us, I think, who were talking about like the the very similar racist riots that were targeting refugee like places where refugees and asylum seekers were being given temporary accommodation, these hotels, and there was attempted arson, and there was fighting with police, and there was vandalism, and there were a whole bunch of people arrested. Um, that all sprung up so quickly and with like very little time for people to pull together a response. There was still a response in places where uh, in places that were in London, certainly there were massive crowds which sprung up very quickly. Within a few days, people were mobilizing thousands and thousands of anti-fascists and anti-racists. But as for it being organized, like it was mobilized, but it wasn't organized, like the classic Kwame Ture thing. Um, and this year, the attempted pogroms continue. Now, the big issue has run an article that's something like who is behind them. This is something we think we should definitely talk about. Like how are they happening? Why are they happening? What money is going into them happening? Because there's definitely some amount of like fascists being bussed around to different parts of the country to like make crowds bigger, especially again after last year. I think there were a huge number of very quick arrests after the rioting last year, and then the rioting like wrapped up very quickly. Whether there was like deterrence, as the police would love to believe that that's how it works, or whether they just got like most of the like dedicated fash who they could get like very quickly. But yeah, the numbers haven't been enormous. Like, there's been, I think when we were talking about this before, there had been maybe 2,000. This one yesterday, there were like 100 fash. The organizing is what I want to talk about because like it's progressed on the response side, the counter demo side, the anti-fascist side, the side who are showing up to defend these like hotels where refugees and asylum seekers are being held. And uh I think when in the early days of us getting Red Planet together, I was pitching us talking about it a little bit like commentating a season of sports, but the season of sports is the revolution and the teams are organizations, right? And there are in the sports metaphors, you might be shocked to learn are not my forte, but in this sports metaphor, there have been some bad plays by some groups, and I'd like to get into that a little bit. Yeah, I think I've introduced it. Mule, do you have thoughts to go off of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I probably said on the episode that we did last year similar stuff. Wow, two leftists who are friends agreeing with each other, who knew? And I think I commented mostly on the huge decline of fascist organizing. And from what I've seen all over the country, it seems to broadly still be the case, except for Manchester yesterday, where there were easily, from a very, very approximate body count that I did when I was watching the footage of it, there was a BNP, so that's the British National Party. Britain First is essentially a spin-off of that. It was a way for the National Front, which was the original 80s sort of continuation of the British Union of Fascists from the Oswald Mosley days. And they kind of recruited a lot of football hooligans, and they tried to basically do pogroms in the street back then. There was a very coordinated trade union focused anti-fascist response, and they were beaten off the streets. And then the BNP were like, right, we're going to get into politics. So that was Nick Griffin, and then sort of like sped up to present day. You've got Paul Golding, who is the head of the Britain First, which is basically the new version of that. Yesterday, what we saw in Manchester was about 700 to 1,000 fascists, all armed with flags, waving flags and stuff. The demographics were certainly not, if we're talking about things to be concerned about, there was a lot of old people for sure. who were in the crowd, but I wouldn't say it's something to not be concerned about, because there was also a lot of men who were scary looking. And I would say that the response in Manchester was definitely not prepared for something like that. But what we were talking about, sort of earlier, what Sophie was talking about, in the fact that they, don't seem to be organized. This was certainly organized. They all went to the same place. They had clearly either come off trains or had seen, sorry, I'll start again. They'd either come off trains, or they had come off buses, or they'd been busting, or they had stayed overnight in an Airbnb. And, it's quite obvious that it was people not from Manchester. It's not people from the local area. And it's not even really people from a localized area anyway. And if you look at some of the footage on YouTube, which I'm going to be going through tomorrow on my stream, there is a bunch of faces that are recognizable who have been in various different fascist demonstrations all over the country. So it looks like they are trying to appear to have a huge following, but this was clearly a very well funded, a very well organized attempt to do that. That has clearly pulled people from all over the country. Anecdotally, most of the streamers who were covering it were clearly not from Manchester. They all had southern accents, right? And not even London accents. These were people either from maybe the West Country, maybe from home counties, maybe from, even further north than Manchester. Sure, there would have been some people from Manchester there, absolutely, like without a shadow of a doubt. I know Manchester fascists, we've seen them, loads of different times. I've been on a bunch of different anti-fascist demonstrations, counter demonstrations, and they, and this is kind of what we need to think about, is our organized response to something like that. And what do we do? How do we figure it out? How do we figure out where the funding's coming from? How do we figure out, where these people are, meeting and organizing and stuff like that? The pogroms, the attempted pogroms that we've seen all over the country have had an absolute neo-Nazi element to them. It's not just people who are super far right and just, kind of tangentially on the edge of fascist rhetoric. It's overwhelmingly, definitely, being organized in some regards by neo-Nazis. And of course, the majority of them, I saw a person from a person from Bristol, Conrad from Bristol, had done some research on the initial pogrom in Epping, right? The initial fascist demonstration outside the, I can't remember what the name of the Bell Hotel. Thanks, Sophie, in Epping. Most of the people who were there, some of the biggest figures, were petty bourgeois, business owners, landlords. These are people with money. These are middle-class people, overwhelmingly. They don't represent the working class. And that's just, broadly true, because when we talk about the working class, especially on Twitch at the moment and online in these kinds of spaces, there's a bit of a shit conversation happening about race and class. And it's like, you absolutely don't have the right understanding of class if you're saying that identity politics is separate from class. Like, overwhelmingly the working class is made up of black and brown people. That's where the majority of black and brown people are. And if we're talking about queer people, overwhelmingly, working class as well. So really important to remember that. And just sort of like looking at the privilege of these people, you can see absolutely that's the case in terms of, the makeup of these fascist attempted pogroms. The key is, I think, as you said, so we need to sort of like understand where this money is coming from, where the funding is coming from, who's organizing it. It would make a lot of sense if it's Britain First, because Britain First have been historically a organization that people have donated a lot of money to, but all of a sudden that appears to have skyrocketed, and there's a lot of money going
Yes.
into them.
Yep.
And where is
Yep.
it coming from?
I think as a general trend, it's very easy to say this because like oil money is funding reactionary political movements throughout the entire imperial core and beyond. Um, it's not just because oil millionaires and billionaires and etc. are like bad people. Of course, they're bad people. It's not just they believe bad things. Of course, they believe bad things. But to protect the oil empire and to keep it an oil empire is like antithetical to making political moves that would create a good standard of living for people who currently live inside the collapsing empire, right? So if imperial power is shrinking, the way that we could keep things good here is by being socialist and by being feminist and by being anti-racist and wanting to cooperate and be multicultural by promoting bodily autonomy, by promoting queer rights. All these things would make us like would give us a better standard of living within our shrinking power, but they want to instead build walls, right? And so like the construction of Fortress Europe, just like the clamping down on bodily autonomy inside imperial core states, just like the general fascist shift, just like the sucking all the last value out of the American working class and then packing up shop, like all of this stuff is being done by by the oil industry political lobby who are funding this stuff. Like there was a thing recently pointing out the links between oil money and TERFs and like anti-trans stuff generally. And it's like this isn't just because they happen to be anti-trans. It's because patriarchal capitalist civilization is authoritarian, and to be more patriarchal is to be more authoritarian, and to fight against that is feminism is true feminism, which is trans inclusive, and this divide and conquer tactic of trying to pretend that like feminists can't decide anything because we're funding these groups who are calling themselves feminists who hate trans people. This is an effective tactic to like shut that down. But I really am kind of itching to talk about the organizing of the counter demos in going on in the UK because like I am very, very, very frustrated with stand up to racism, which is a it's an SWP front. And when people talk about the SWP having fronts, it always sounds very conspiratorial because like they're pretending, but it's just like they are pretending is the thing. They have a bunch of orgs that are essentially offshoots. They are like working groups or delegations or whatever, but they have different branding. But they are SWP people, and the like SWP is a vanguard party structure revolutionary org. Like that's what they want to be doing, is to be like using a central committee to like allocate people to go do this thing and focus on this thing. And there have been orgs involved in housing. I've encountered there have been orgs involved in borders and migration stuff, anti-fascist stuff, across the board. There's like various different groups that are set up by the SWP who have some money to be doing stuff with, and they are they're doing the same thing always, which is like using the large platform that they have to call a large but totally like sanctioned and cooperating with police demo, and then hold some speeches there with some people who are popular within that space, and then all go home after taking some pictures to show how big the crowds were. And that's like their strategy for essentially everything, because they're trying to function basically like a bourgeois electoral party. So like
Right.
all of this, I'm getting a little bit deep with my critique of the SWP, but I need to express this frustration because like people talk about Comrade Delta and the sex abuse scandal in the SWP, and that was a good reason that the SWP should have shut up shop and should have just stopped. They should have given up at that point and like let people who were good in that org form new orgs instead of carrying on. But like the problem now in real terms now is they're making bad decisions.
Yeah.
So like the like the Bolsheviks, right, were like supporting trade unionism when trade unions were illegal, right? They weren't like working with the cops, right? Like they weren't doing this piddling respectability politics shit. So
And I think
the biggest
something that backs you up here, so just while I've got it on my mind, is that the stand up to racism part of the counter demonstration yesterday in Manchester was not even on the route that the fascists were taking.
Yes.
So the fascists marched from Piccadilly train station down towards Portland Street and then down towards St. Peter's Square, it completely missing Piccadilly Gardens. And then the stand up to racism demonstration sort of marched down St. Peter's Square, got blocked by the cops, got forced to go around after the fascists had all assembled in St. Peter's Square, and then were, sort of basically corralled into this little fucking so it was a corral. It just had like iron fences, the little portable iron fences that they have, and so did not disrupt the march, the fascist march whatsoever. And I think that's the key here as to what you're saying. It's like they are ineffective, they are working with the cops, and if you say something, even if you try and get involved and say oh, actually what we should do is try and get stand up to racism to do something, they will always just be like, no, we should just do what the cops say.
Yeah.
That's just what they always say.
But again, they're trying to play like an influencer game. They're trying to do it almost like they're, like a bread tuber. Like they're trying to get like, the photo op for the big crowd, and that's all they care about. Like when you say that they aren't even on the fascist route, they're not trying to do like material, like organizing that is like about combating something in material terms, making an actual change. Yeah, like I'm completely agreeing with you. Like this is what they did at every London thing that I've heard about. And like I'm expressing a lot of this frustration. Like I know someone who is involved in the organizing of the non stand up to racism counter demo yesterday. And like I'm not going to say that it's a dire situation on its own for there to be like an SUTR counter demo and a different counter demo. Like that's not on its own a bad situation, right? If there is one group where everyone in the community can show out and like you can bring kids and there's a gazebo and there's literature inviting you to events and all this shit, even if it is SWP stuff, like that's fine. And then there's another counter demo which like they've shown up to fight the fash and make them leave and never come back, right? The people who are chanting like shame on you because the cops are coming in like arresting them for trying to drive out these murderous fash from our communities, right? Like that on its own isn't a bad situation. But the situation being that there's an SUTR counter demo and a counter SUTR counter demo, like the people who showed up because they are pissed off at how SUTR is handling it so badly, that's a bad situation. And not only that, but like SUTR have been hiring private security. Like this is a thing that needs to be said and it needs to be repeated and it needs to be shared around. They've been hiring private security who have been bolstering the numbers of the cops, who have been effectively just acting as cops and policing the people who are in their marches and stopping them in some instances from doing de-arrests and stopping people getting arrested. Like they are harming people, right? They are like this private security is like not only not doing their job, because like I know of an instance where they let a far right streamer into their counter demo. That's a thing they should be stopping. But like where they're actually stopping people from de-arresting comrades, that's really fucking bad. Like again, this is not like vanguardism. This is trying to win the game that Keir Starmer is playing. Like fuck this. This is no good. Like the other demo, the one that's not for the kids and families to show up to, where people are masked and ballied up and are like there to actually fight a fash. Like it shouldn't be there because SUTR is doing such a bad job, and SUTR's like paid goons should not be like repressing that element in the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the thing that drove the fash off the street back in the 80s and the 90s was anti-fascist action, and it was a group of people who were like, we are going to go and beat the shit out of fascists, not on demonstrations, but in the streets where we know that they are hanging out, in the places that we know that they are hanging out, in the places that they're organizing, in the places that they're planning demonstrations. And I'm not saying that is, the only way that we should be organizing against fascists. And actually, I'm not saying that that's how we should organize against fascists, because breaking the law and attacking people is wrong and bad. But, you know, obviously people will just end up doing that anyway. And I think that that will probably be the outcome if there is so much shoddy resistance against fascists. Because if we're going to be in a situation in the UK where pogroms are just normalized again, you have to remember that in the 70s and the 80s, the fascists would go out and do queer bashing. Both of my uncles engaged in that. Also P-word bashing, which is basically Pakistani bashing. And of course, it didn't matter if they were Pakistani, just anyone who was brown, and they would beat up black people as well. You know, always like, and that's the kind of thing that anti-fascist action was, essentially trying to fight against, right? It was this kind of situation, and we've made so much progress. And I'm not saying that that is like not happening, but it's not happening on the scale that it used to. And if we're at this point now where we're just allowing 700 to 1,000 fascists to just like march on the street of Manchester with like no opposition, like we're not even, you know, people aren't even pushing back against the cops who are protecting them. You know, we're only going to end up in a situation where that happens again. And then, you know, the cops are going to have the difficulty of dealing with anti-fascist street gangs who are going into fascist places and beating the shit out of them. So, you know, you've got this impossible situation that the state doesn't want to address and doesn't want to deal with and wants to encourage, but it's going to make far more work from down the line. And, you know, obviously I genuinely believe that is probably the most likely situation that we're going to end up now, going to end up there.
It's difficult because like there are a lot of I don't know if they are groups with more anarchists in. They sometimes are like they often are smaller or more horizontally organized groups. They're certainly not like vanguardist groups like the SWP, but like these are the kinds of orgs that are coming together for this other resistance. And it's like I don't know, like it's important that like the SWP and its offshoots like SUTR are using the platform they do have to grab a large number of people, get a large number of people down. Like when you meet like protest grannies who are like at every protest, they're there because the Socialist Workers' Party has them on a fucking email chain and they just want to get down to the protest, and they know it's a reliably like safe place where like they've worked with the police and blah 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 and all this stuff, and like they get to hear speeches from their favorite people, and it's like, you know, a nice day out. Like not to deride protest grannies, I think they're fucking great, I'm glad they're so dedicated, but like, you know, they get the numbers down is my point. But yeah, there has to be something for a kind of more people who are more direct action focused, because fascist direct action is burning migrants to death. That's what direct action is for them. And it's, you know, taking literal material steps towards their goals. And like, we have to have material steps the other way, stopping that happening, because like the police are not doing a good fucking job. If it's getting to the stage where the police are having to arrest people, fight people back, they should just be scared that like the local community is going to kick their teeth in. That should be it, the bottom line.
I think that's where we have to, you know, really think about it in terms of, you know, how people are organizing around it. There's got to be the two-pronged approach here when it comes to beating fascism. The first is community education. You stop fascism at the root, which is teaching people, hey, I know that this reform guy that you saw on the internet was saying that all these evil migrants are like taking your jobs, but why don't you come down with me to the soup kitchen where we feed migrants who are fucking homeless, who are literally doing Deliveroo jobs that you will never do. Like, let's face it, pal, you'll never do that work, will you? No, actually. You like Deliveroo, don't you? Yeah, I do, actually. Right, well, these are the guys fucking doing it. You know, that level of education. And then, you know, on top of that, like you say, Soph, it's the putting the bodies on the line in terms of preventing anyone from being fucking lynched, essentially. Um,
Like, if there
yeah,
was even like doing this thing with private security, I'm especially mad about this, and I'd like this to like get back to some people who have decision making power on this and make it fucking change. Don't fucking do that again, you dumbasses. Like that, like if there were just two counter demos going on, like the family friendly one and the Antifa super soldier one, it it won't be possible for like the friendly like IPA dad from North London who's like brought his kids to be like, I'm gonna leave my kids here for a second and I'm gonna go over there because I see that those fascists are trying to like set fire to
Yeah.
migrants and I see that the police are trying to
Watch
arrest
this,
our
kids.
guys and I'm gonna stop them right now, which is a thing
Yeah.
they should be able to do, but literally
Yeah.
like if they have people who are stewarding their crowd to like stay within like only do respectable nice things that the Johnny Law will respect, and it's like no, like
Yeah.
you need to allow people to you need to
Yeah.
let the crowd control itself and have some trust. Like if you're communists, like trust the people a little bit
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
like
yeah.
make their own decisions.
We've had a little bit of that over here. There's both Greenpeace and also there's like one of the Palestine orgs, which is like run by basically like, protest grannies sort of thing. Like they're really well meaning, but they're just like, they are protest grannies. And, like there was like one event that we did. It was like a counter rally thing after Destiny's Church. The evangelical org had kind of like attacked a bunch of queer and trans people, and so we did this like kind of training, like what happens if people show up, how to like form a line effectively, and all this kind of stuff. And so like the Greenpeace and the Palestine, I can't remember the name of their groups. They were kind of just like, well, why don't we'll just tell the police? And it's like, oh, okay, well, like, have you seen the videos of this happening before? Because like the police are kind of just with them, And they're just like, no, they wouldn't do that. They're here to protect people. And it's like, okay, we are just like fundamentally in a very different
There's
place.
there's literally
Like,
a protest granny who's like maybe one of the archetypical ones I'm thinking of when I say protest granny, who like I saw her the other day, like not just the other day, like in a conversation with a a young man of color who I know, like a queer man of color who like said offhandedly that all cops are bastards, and she was like, okay, but not all cops though, and like literally you're speaking to like a
especially the one
very
you're
like
thinking about.
policed demographic of person
Yeah,
here, and she was like, oh, but they're nice, and it's like you were an old white lady, and
yeah,
like
yeah.
when she got very gentle pushback about this, she was like, okay, I'm leaving, and just like I don't
Mm,
want to hear any of this, and I'm just like, yes, I we have to appreciate that there's this kind of
mm,
person who's in, they're very
yeah.
definitely going to show up to all the stuff, but like
Oh,
this is their politics.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely. All right. Well,
Yeah, we are a little run over there.
that's
Apologies.
all right.
Yeah, thank you so much everyone for tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
That is our show. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please go to Red Planet on Patreon. That's patreon.com/red_planet. Make sure to support us. There are a bunch of different ways that you could do that. We also have merch, and there are all kinds of bonuses that you can get and benefits from getting on Patreon. Yeah, you could get our merch at mercenarycreative.com. Just go onto there and check out the Queer Existence is Resistance shirt, literally designed by Tim and Soph. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal stuff. I've got one myself, and it's really, really good, and it makes you look dead fit. If people want to find out more about Soph, where could they do that?
I did we thank the pickers?
Oh,
Did we thank
sorry,
the
I always
sickos?
fucking do this. One of the best things that you can get as a Patreon reward, one of the top rewards, is if you are at the highest tier of Patreon support, you will get a thank you at the end of every stream, and it looks like this. Thank you so much, Risk Inverse, for being our sicko. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, if I wanted to, after this show, watch more Soph, where can I do that?
My YouTube channel, is called Sophie from Mars. You can find all my links at linktree.ee/Sophie from Mars. I'm Sophie from Mars on everything. There are going to be new videos coming out, actually kind of a whole spray of them. Just spaffing right out onto my channel soon. And you can see them all early on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Sophie from Mars. I genuinely deeply appreciate anyone who hears these words, who goes and just watches any of my videos. Go and watch my video about the Mars trilogy by Kim Stanley Robinson. I spent a long time making it. I'm very proud of it. Like, I really kind of made it for me because it's just like stories that I love, and it's about utopia and space and this stuff. A lot of fun making it, but I promise you'll have a good time, and I'll be deeply grateful and appreciative if you just go watch it and then comment your thoughts. But in the meantime, like, things are turning around. My Patreon was bleeding support for a really long time. And like it started to not only level out, but go up a little bit when I release new stuff, which is really cool. It's a good sign. Please check out my Patreon if you can support me. Even just $2 would let you see all my videos early when they're ready. And I've got a bunch coming up. They're all pretty exciting ones. So that's me. Linktree.ee/Sophie from Mars. But what about Tim? For those Tim heads, of which I am one, please tell us where to Tim.
You can find me on Twitch and YouTube as Conquest of Dread, or you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky as Dread Conquest. And yeah, if you like tabletop RPGs and stuff, you can follow my one that's been in production for a while. It's Dark RPG 2000 on Twitter. It's like kind of dystopian future evil corporations kind of thing. Yeah, you can check that out there. It's very fun. It's almost done. That rhymed. Hell yeah. What about Mule? Where can we find the down low on Mule?
You could get the down low on me, Tim, by coming to my Twitch streams, which are now my main job, which is really, really good. Super happy with how my Twitch streams are going at the minute. They're growing. The community is growing, getting new chatters in here. I'm trying to bring them across to Red Planet. So hit me up over on twitch.tv/DJMUEL. You can get all of my links at linktree.ee/DJMUEL. But if you go to patreon.com/DJMUEL, you will find there is a bunch of bonus content that I have released this week. It's in relation to my new video, which will be coming out this week, which is Bastard Landlord Influencers 2. It's finally done. I've filmed it. It's in the editing suite. I just have to finish it off and polish it, and it will be out on Thursday this week. So please go ahead and check that out. You can also check out my Twitch Clips channel, which is little highlighted highlights of my Twitch stream. Head over to Mule Twitch Clips on YouTube to get that. But yeah, the Patreon content is what I'm pushing, because obviously if I get more subs on Patreon, you know, I'm sure Sophie explained it's good. It feels good. It's good to get money for the work that you do.
You can pay your rent.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
It's crazy. You could pay rent with it. You could get food with it. Oh my God.
So good.
And it's so good. And yeah, but there's a bunch of bonus content on there. Like, for example, I did a movie review of The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, which is my pride watch. I watch it every year. And I also did a bunch of writing. I've been trying out doing little sort of like writing pieces talking about the genocide in Gaza and various other things as well. You can get access to those for as little as £2 a month. But head over there and check all that stuff out. But yeah, just like Soph says, if you can't afford to support me monetarily, head over to my YouTube channel, watch a video. That helps as well. You can just find me with DJ MUEL on YouTube. And that is it for Red Planet. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. We will see you next week.
See you then.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Bye.